Hey there, and welcome back to Dawn Catalyst. I'm so glad you're joining me today for what might be one of the most transformative conversations we have together. Today, we're tackling something we all struggle with: breaking those stubborn bad habits that seem to cling to our lives despite our best efforts. We've all been there, right? Maybe it's reaching for your phone first thing in the morning, even though you know it starts your day with stress. Perhaps it's that late night snacking that undermines your health goals. Or maybe it's procrastinating on important work until the deadline looms large. Whatever your particular challenge, today's discussion is going to give you practical tools to finally break free. But here's the thing: we're not just going to talk about eliminating bad habits. That approach rarely works for long. Instead, we're going to focus on replacement strategies, the art of substituting unhelpful behaviors with positive ones that serve you better. This approach is backed by neuroscience and behavioral psychology, and it's far more effective than simply trying to stop a bad habit through willpower alone. Before we dive in, I'd like you to take a moment and think about one habit you've been trying to break, something specific that you know isn't serving you well. Got it in mind? Great. Keep that habit in focus as we go through today's strategies, because by the end of our time together, you'll have a concrete plan to transform it. Let's begin by understanding why bad habits are so persistent and why traditional approaches to breaking them often fail. Why bad habits are so stubborn. Have you ever wondered why bad habits seem to have such a powerful grip on us? The answer lies in how our brains are wired. From a neurological perspective, habits, both good and bad, follow the same basic pattern. First, there's a cue or trigger that initiates the behavior. Then comes the routine, the habit itself. And finally, there's a reward, some kind of satisfaction your brain receives from the behavior. Let's make this concrete with an example most of us can relate to: mindless social media scrolling. The cue might be feeling bored or a notification on your phone. The routine is opening the app and scrolling through your feed. And the reward? That little dopamine hit you get from seeing new content, likes, or comments. This three-part habit loop becomes deeply ingrained in our neural pathways. The more we repeat a habit, the stronger these neural connections become, until the behavior happens almost automatically. This is why simply trying to stop a bad habit rarely works long-term. Your brain has efficient neural pathways established for these behaviors, and it takes the path of least resistance. There's another reason bad habits are so persistent: they usually serve a purpose. Even habits we consider bad often fulfill some need or provide some benefit. That's the reward part of the loop. Consider stress eating. The habit might be undermining your health goals, but it's temporarily relieving emotional discomfort. That's a powerful reward that reinforces the behavior. Or take procrastination: it provides immediate relief from challenging tasks, even though it creates bigger problems later. So, if just trying to stop a bad habit doesn't work, what does? This is where replacement strategies come in. Research shows that it's much easier to replace a behavior than to simply eliminate it. When you try to just stop a bad habit, you create a void, and nature abhors a vacuum. Without a replacement behavior, you'll likely fall back into the old pattern. The key insight from habit researchers is this: you can't easily eliminate the cue or the craving for the reward, but you can change the routine, the habit itself, by substituting a new behavior that addresses the same underlying need. I experienced this myself when trying to break my habit of checking email first thing in the morning. For years, I'd reach for my phone before even getting out of bed and start my day by diving into work messages. This consistently started my day with stress and made me feel behind before I'd even had breakfast. Simply trying to stop checking my phone didn't work. The cue, waking up, and the craving, wanting to feel productive and connected, were still there. What finally worked was replacement. I put a novel on my nightstand and started reading fiction for 10 minutes when I first woke up instead. This new routine still gave me a sense of accomplishment to start my day, but without the stress and anxiety that came from diving straight into work emails. Let's dig a bit deeper into why replacement strategies work so well from a scientific perspective. When we perform any behavior repeatedly, our brains form neural pathways that make that behavior increasingly automatic. Neuroscientists describe this as neurons that fire together, wire together. The more you repeat a habit, the stronger and more efficient these neural connections become. This is actually great news when we're building positive habits, but it works against us with bad habits. Those unwanted behaviors have well-established neural highways in your brain. Here's where replacement strategies come in. Instead of trying to demolish those neural highways, which is extremely difficult, you're essentially creating a detour. You're keeping the same entry point, the cue and destination, the reward, but changing the route between them. Studies in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, show that when you consistently perform a new behavior in response to a familiar cue, you gradually build new neural pathways. Over time, these new pathways can become stronger than the old ones. Charles Duhigg, author of The Power of Habit, calls this the golden rule of habit change. You keep the same cue and the same reward, but change the routine. Research from behavior scientists at MIT and elsewhere supports this approach. In one study, participants who focused on replacing unwanted behaviors with specific alternative actions were significantly more successful at changing their habits compared to those who simply tried to use willpower to stop the unwanted behavior. This replacement approach works with our brain's architecture rather than against it. And there's another benefit: it minimizes the discomfort of habit change. When you're simply trying to stop a bad habit, you're fighting against the craving for the reward that habit provides. But when you substitute a new behavior that delivers a similar reward, you satisfy that craving in a healthier way. Think about someone trying to quit smoking. The cues might be feeling stressed or finishing a meal. The routine is smoking a cigarette, and the rewards include stress relief, oral stimulation, and a brief moment of mindfulness. Simply trying to resist smoking when those cues arise is incredibly difficult, but replacing smoking with a behavior that provides similar rewards, perhaps deep breathing exercises or chewing sugar free gum, addresses the same underlying needs in a healthier way. The key is understanding what psychologists call the function of the habit, what need it's fulfilling for you. Once you understand that, you can design replacement behaviors that address the same need. Identifying your habit loops. Before you can effectively replace a bad habit, you need to understand its structure, the specific cue routine reward loop that drives your behavior. Let's walk through a process to identify each component of your habit loop. First, let's focus on the routine, the behavior itself. This is usually the easiest part to identify because it's the action you want to change. Is it checking social media when you should be working? Snacking when you're not hungry? Biting your nails when you're anxious? Be specific about exactly what behavior you want to change. Next, let's identify the cues that trigger this routine. Habit researchers have found that most habit cues fall into one of five categories. Location: where are you when the habit occurs? Time: what time of day does it happen? Emotional state: what are you feeling right before the habit kicks in? Other people: who else is around? Immediately preceding action: what action consistently comes right before the habit? To identify your cues, try keeping a simple habit diary for a few days. When you catch yourself engaging in your unwanted habit, quickly note down these five factors. Patterns will quickly emerge. For example, Sarah, one of our community members, wanted to break her habit of mindless snacking in the evening. After tracking for a week, she realized her cues were being in the living room location around 9 p.m. time, feeling bored or slightly anxious emotional state, being alone other people, and sitting down to watch TV preceding action. Once you understand your cues, the final step is to identify the reward you're getting from the habit. This can be tricky because rewards aren't always obvious. Ask yourself, what craving does this habit satisfy? What need does it meet? Is it physical pleasure, emotional relief, distraction, social connection, a sense of accomplishment? To figure this out, try the substitution method. When the urge for your habit arises, experiment with different rewards and see which ones satisfy the craving. Going back to Sarah's evening snacking example, she tried different replacement behaviors. Day 1, she took a short walk instead of snacking. Day 2, she called a friend for a quick chat. Day 3, she made a cup of herbal tea. Day 4, she did a quick 5-minute stretching routine. After each alternative, she waited 15 minutes and then assessed whether the craving was still there. She discovered that the stretching routine and the herbal tea both reduced her snacking urge, while the walk and phone call didn't help much. This suggested her snacking was providing physical comfort and a moment of mindfulness rather than addressing boredom or social connection. Let's try this with your habit. Think about that unwanted behavior you identified earlier. What are the consistent cues that trigger it? And what reward are you getting from it? Take a moment to reflect on this. understanding your personal habit loop is the foundation for everything else we'll discuss today. I'll share one of my own examples. I had a bad habit of interrupting people during conversations, something I'm not proud of. When I analyzed this habit, I realized the cues were feeling excited about an idea, emotional state, being in a group discussion, location, and other people, and hearing something I strongly agreed or disagreed with preceding action. The reward was feeling heard and validated, and getting to share my perspective. Once I understood this loop, I could work on a replacement strategy, which we'll talk about next. Designing effective replacements. Now that you understand your habit loop, let's design replacement strategies that actually work. The goal is to find new behaviors that respond to the same cues and deliver similar rewards, but without the negative consequences of your current habit. Here are 4 principles for creating effective replacement behaviors. First, the replacement should address the same underlying need as the original habit. If your bad habit provides stress relief, your replacement should also relieve stress. If your habit gives you energy, your replacement should energize you too. Second, the replacement should be practical and executable in the same context as the original habit. If your bad habit happens at work, your replacement needs to be something you can do at work. Third, the replacement should be healthier or more beneficial than the original habit. This doesn't mean it has to be perfect, just better than what you're currently doing. Fourth, start with small, achievable replacements. Don't try to replace scrolling social media for an hour with reading War and Peace. Instead, replace it with reading 1 page of any book I enjoy. Let me share some real world examples of effective replacement strategies. For stress eating, which is often triggered by emotional discomfort and rewards you with temporary relief, try replacement behaviors like drinking a glass of water, doing 60 seconds of deep breathing, or taking a short walk. These activities can provide a pause and emotional regulation without the downsides of unnecessary calories. For the smartphone checking habit, which is often triggered by boredom or FOMO, fear of missing out, and rewards you with stimulation and connection, try keeping a small notebook for jotting down thoughts, carrying a novel or magazine, or having a fidget toy for tactile stimulation. These provide mental engagement without the endless digital rabbit hole. For procrastination, which is triggered by challenging tasks and rewards you with temporary relief from discomfort, try the 5 minute rule. Commit to just 5 minutes of work on the task, breaking the task into smaller steps, or using the worst first approach, do the most unpleasant part first. These strategies make starting less intimidating while still moving you toward completion. Going back to my own example of interrupting during conversations, I developed a replacement strategy of writing down my thoughts instead of blurting them out. I keep a small notebook with me in meetings, and when I feel the urge to interrupt, I quickly jot down my idea instead. This still gives me the satisfaction of capturing my thought, but without cutting others off. Later, I can share my idea at an appropriate time. Now think about your own habit. Based on the cues and rewards you identified earlier, what replacement behavior might address the same need in a healthier way? Remember, the ideal replacement behavior should be triggered by the same cues as your bad habit, satisfying the same underlying need or craving, healthier or more beneficial in the long run, practical to implement in your daily life. For instance, if your bad habit is mindlessly browsing social media when you should be working, cue, feeling stuck on a difficult task, reward, mental stimulation and a break from effort, a good replacement might be taking a structured 2 minute break to stretch and look out the window. This gives you the mental break you're craving without the endless scrolling that can eat up 30 minutes before you realize it. Having a replacement strategy is great, but successfully implementing it in real life requires some practical techniques. Here are some proven approaches to help you put your replacement strategies into action. First, use implementation intentions. These are specific plans in the format. When situation X arises, I will perform response Y. Research shows that people who form implementation intentions are significantly more likely to follow through on their intentions than those who don't. For your habit replacement, create a clear statement like, when I feel the urge to check social media while working, situation X, I will instead take 3 deep breaths and refocus on my task for just 5 minutes, response Y. Second, modify your environment to make the replacement easier and the bad habit harder. Environment design is powerful because it works even when your motivation and willpower are low. For example, if you're trying to replace evening TV binging with reading, put the TV remote in a drawer and place a great book on your usual sitting spot. If you're replacing smartphone use before bed with journaling, charge your phone in another room and keep a journal on your nightstand. Third, use habit stacking, attaching your new replacement behavior to an existing habit. The formula is after I current habit, I will new habit. This leverages the power of existing neural pathways to help establish new ones. For instance, after I feel the urge to procrastinate old cue, I will work on the task for just 2 minutes new response. Or, after I finish dinner existing habit, I will immediately wash my dishes, replacement for leaving them in the sink. Fourth, enlist accountability through social support. Tell someone about your replacement strategy and check in with them regularly. Better yet, find someone working on a similar habit change and partner up. Research consistently shows that social accountability significantly increases success rates for behavior change. Fifth, track your progress. The simple act of monitoring your behavior increases your awareness and improves your chances of success. You don't need anything fancy. A simple note in your phone or checkmark on a calendar works well. One viewer, Michael, shared how he used these implementation techniques to replace his habit of hitting the snooze button repeatedly each morning. His replacement strategy was to immediately get out of bed and drink a glass of water he prepared the night before. He used implementation intentions. When my alarm goes off, I will immediately swing my feet to the floor and stand up. He modified his environment by placing his alarm across the room next to a prepared glass of water. He used habit stacking. After I turn off my alarm, I will immediately drink the entire glass of water. He enlisted accountability by telling his partner about his goal and asking for encouragement. And he tracked his progress on a simple calendar, building a chain of successful mornings. Within 3 weeks, his snooze habit was replaced with a much healthier morning routine that gave him extra time and a better start to his day. Let's apply these implementation techniques to your habit. Think about your replacement strategy. How could you create a specific implementation intention around it? How might you modify your environment to support this change? Is there an existing habit you could stack it with? Who could provide accountability? And how will you track your progress? Let's be honest, changing habits is rarely a smooth, linear process. Even with the best replacement strategies, you'll encounter setbacks and challenges. Let's talk about how to handle them effectively. First, anticipate barriers. Think ahead about what might derail your replacement strategy and plan for those scenarios. Will certain situations, people, or emotions make it particularly difficult to implement your new behavior? Having a plan for these high risk situations dramatically increases your chances of success. For example, if you're replacing stress eating with deep breathing exercises, anticipate extremely stressful days when deep breathing might not feel sufficient. What's your backup plan? Perhaps having healthy snacks available or calling a supportive friend. Second, use the never twice rule when you slip up. Slipping occasionally is normal and expected in habit change. The key is to avoid letting one slip become two in a row. If you find yourself falling back into your old habit, don't beat yourself up, but do immediately recommit to your replacement strategy for the very next opportunity. Third, adjust your replacement if it's not working. Sometimes our first attempt at a replacement behavior isn't quite right. It might not adequately address the underlying need, or it might be too difficult to implement consistently. If after a few weeks you're still struggling, it's time to reassess and refine your approach. Jason, a Dawn Catalyst community member, shared his experience trying to break his habit of checking work emails in the evening. His first replacement strategy was to read articles instead, but he found himself still feeling anxious about what might be in his inbox. His replacement wasn't addressing the underlying need, peace of mind about work. He adjusted his strategy to instead spend 5 minutes each evening writing a clear plan for the next day's priorities. This worked much better because it gave him the sense of work preparedness he was seeking from checking emails, but without the stress and boundary violation of actually working after hours. Fourth, be compassionate with yourself. Habit change is challenging, and self-criticism only makes it harder. Research shows that self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness you would offer a good friend, actually improves outcomes in behavior change efforts. When you slip up, try this self compassion exercise. Acknowledge the difficulty of what you're trying to do. Remind yourself that struggling with habits is part of the universal human experience, and speak to yourself encouragingly, the way you would to someone you care about. Remember that every time you attempt your replacement strategy, even if you don't execute it perfectly, you're strengthening those new neural pathways. Progress in habit change is often invisible at first, happening at the neurological level before it becomes consistently visible in your behavior. Fifth, celebrate small wins. Our brains respond powerfully to positive reinforcement. When you successfully implement your replacement strategy, take a moment to acknowledge and celebrate that success, no matter how small it seems. This creates a positive emotional experience that reinforces the new neural pathway. Consider creating a simple reward system for yourself. Maybe after a week of consistently using your replacement strategy, you treat yourself to something special. These celebrations help solidify your new habits and make the change process more enjoyable. Successfully replacing even one bad habit can create a positive ripple effect that extends to other areas of your life. This happens for several reasons worth understanding. First, there's the phenomenon of keystone habits, certain behaviors that, when changed, cause positive chain reactions. For example, regular exercise often leads to better eating choices, improved sleep, and increased productivity. It's not just about the exercise itself, but about how that one habit influences many other behaviors. When you successfully replace a bad habit, you might be creating a keystone effect without even realizing it. The confidence and skills you gain from one successful change can spill over into other areas. Second, habit replacement builds what psychologists call self efficacy, your belief in your ability to succeed at a specific task. Each time you successfully implement your replacement strategy, you strengthen your self efficacy, not just for that particular habit, but for behavior change in general. This growing confidence makes it easier to tackle other habits. It's like building a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets and the more it can handle. Third, you develop valuable meta skills through the process of intentional habit change. You learn to observe your own behavior patterns, identify triggers, design interventions, and persist through challenges. These skills are transferable to virtually any behavior change you might want to make in the future. Let me share a personal example of this ripple effect. When I replaced my habit of checking email first thing in the morning with reading fiction, I expected to just have more peaceful mornings. But what actually happened was much more expansive. Starting my day with reading instead of email made me more relaxed and creative throughout the entire morning. This led to better work performance and less stress. The reduced stress meant I was less likely to stress eat at lunch. And having successfully changed, this one habit gave me the confidence to tackle other behaviors I wanted to change. What began as a single habit replacement created positive changes across multiple areas of my life. And I've seen this same pattern with many viewers who have shared their stories with me. Think about the habit you've been focusing on throughout our discussion. How might successfully replacing this one habit create positive ripple effects in your life? What other behaviors might improve as a result? And what additional habits might you tackle next, building on the skills and confidence you'll gain from this first success? Conclusion. We've covered a lot of ground today in our exploration of breaking bad habits through replacement strategies. Let's recap the key insights. First, we learned why bad habits are so persistent. They're established neural pathways that follow the cue routine reward pattern, and they serve some purpose in our lives, even if they have negative consequences. Second, we discovered that replacement is far more effective than elimination when it comes to changing habits. By substituting a new routine that responds to the same cues and delivers similar rewards, we work with our brain's architecture rather than fighting against it. Third, we walked through a process for identifying your personal habit loops, understanding the specific cues that trigger your habits and the rewards that reinforce them. Fourth, we explored how to design effective replacement strategies that address the same underlying needs as your current habits, but in healthier ways. Fifth, we discussed practical implementation techniques like creating specific implementation intentions, modifying your environment, habit stacking, enlisting social support, and tracking your progress. Sixth, we acknowledged that setbacks are normal in habit change, and talked about strategies for handling them effectively, including self compassion and celebrating small wins. And finally, we explored how successfully replacing even one habit can create positive ripple effects across multiple areas of your life. The journey of breaking bad habits and building better ones is ultimately about personal growth and creating a life that aligns with your values and goals. It's not about perfection, it's about progress and self awareness. I encourage you to start with just one habit. Apply what you've learned today to design a replacement strategy, implement it consistently, and navigate the inevitable challenges with patience and self compassion. Remember that every small victory rewires your brain a little bit more, making the next success a little easier. What habit will you start replacing today? What first step will you take? The path to change begins with that single step. If you found today's discussion valuable, I'd love to have you join our Dawn Catalyst community. Each day, we tackle a different topic related to personal development, productivity, and living more intentionally. Tomorrow's episode will explore the science of focus, how to achieve deep work in a distracted world, something I think we can all benefit from in today's attention economy. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our daily topics. And if you know someone who's struggling with breaking a particular habit, share this video with them. Sometimes the right strategy at the right time can make all the difference. I read all comments, so let me know what habits you're working on replacing and any strategies that have worked well for you. Your experience might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear. Thanks for spending this time with me today, and I'll see you tomorrow on Dawn Catalyst.